Ladies and gentlemen, the guy at the end of the bar proudly presents the Dantanna's Late Shift. Brought to you by attorney Ray Giudice. And now the two men to take you to new heights in sports conversation, Nick Cellini and Matt Chernoff.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Late Shift. The aforementioned Ray Giudice will join us a little bit later on to talk about a couple of NFL players in trouble with the law. The money mad Ted Jenkins coming here a little bit later on as well. And my big brother covering the NBA Finals in San Antonio, Vince Cellini, also going to be joining us. And before we get to the NBA Finals, Matt Chernoff and Nick Cellini with you.
Hi.
Let's talk about number 5. That's the number he's going to be wearing in New England. Tim Tebow coming to terms with the Patriots.
All right, well, a couple of thoughts right off the bat. This strikes me as Belichick trying to have some fun with all of us. You think about a couple of things here. There was a story that came out that somehow put Belichick and Tebow in the same sentence, and Belichick hating Tim Tebow, which Belichick came out later and said, I don't hate Tim Tebow. In fact, they signed him, but they signed him to a 2-year, completely unguaranteed, no signing bonus, no penalty if they get rid of him contract. So, Nicholas, they say, what do we have to lose? I say to you, what do you have to gain? There's nothing to gain from having the guy. Forget what you have to lose. You don't gain anything.
It's a waste of time. First of all, you're not going to take Tom Brady off the field. And I know in third and fourth and short, you're saying Tim Tebow could help you. Tom Brady has been 39 for 39 as of late, as in 100% in converting third and ones and fourth and ones on quarterback sneaks. You're certainly not going to take him off the field. And I don't care that Josh McDaniels is the guy that drafted him. Some would say that's what cost Josh McDaniels ultimately his job.
Put it to you this way. Belichick had the meeting with the media when he was just going to address a lot of things. He said nothing about Tebow. Wouldn't get in any specifics. Wouldn't even call him a full-time quarterback. I think he's kind of having some fun with this right now, just to kind of show people, I'll do it. What do I have to lose? And again, like I said, I don't know how much they really have to gain, but he will wear the number 5, and he will be in New England. All right, the NBA Finals continue to be the number one story around the sports world, and as the series goes along, storylines, not only for the series itself, but in the future, continue to materialize like. Let's say that the Heat were to drop this series. Would that be the NBA's best angle on this? Redemption next year for LeBron? Can the Big Three get back? Or is it better, Nick, if they were to have 2 in a row, trying to build the dynasty? What is better for the game?
I think it's better if they lose for talk because, first of all, LeBron's going into the final year of his deal next year. What happens then? And also, LeBron, are people going to discount that title last year because LeBron will be 1-3 in NBA Finals? I still think LeBron needs that second title, and I think he'll be the first to admit that when you think about what he said the night that this group got together at that rally down in Miami.
We're going to win not 1, not 2, not 3, and it went on and on. But your point is he needs a second to validate it. I don't even think a second's going to be enough. There are some, for whatever reason, who won't let go of the decision, the TV show, who won't let go of him leaving Cleveland. He's going to get this second title, in my opinion, but that's still not going to be enough. You're going to hear how Michael had 6, and Kobe has this many, and Larry has this many. Some will never give him the credit he is due as one of the greatest players of all time.
But he's never going to top Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's 6-0 in NBA Finals, MVP in each and every one of those finals.
So what? So what? Nobody's better than Michael. Big deal.
Exactly.
What is that? Does that hurt? LeBron's one of the great players ever. What's the big deal?
That's why it's not fair to compare him to the greatest player of all time in Michael Jordan. Now, there's a flip side to this coin, my friend. The Spurs,
not your friend,
overall, as an organization, have 4 titles. You heard me, Punchy? 4 titles. But look who they have defeated. Not a lot of stellar teams. If they knock off LeBron and the Spurs, does this, to a certain extent, validate them?
You know, I don't want to just, ignore it, but 4 titles is 4 titles. I don't care who you beat. We live in this media world where we look to create. Tim Duncan, the big fundamental, one of the great nicknames. This team, they do it the right way with Parker and Ginobili and Popovich. They have nothing. If they lose this series in 5 games, they lose it in 6 or 7, they've still had one of the great runs you can ever imagine. I don't think it validates anymore. Would it be the icing on the top? Maybe, but nothing would be taken away if they lose it.
Tony Parker is going to have to be the key. The shot that he hit that you're seeing here at the end of Game 1 was absolutely ridiculous. Everything has to flow through him. The thing that's scary is LeBron, really, even though he had a triple-double in Game 1, hasn't gone off yet. And if he does, you got to believe the Spurs are going to be in some serious, serious trouble.
All right, the other story, which is going to make your head explode, more PED talk in Major League Baseball after the Biogenesis Clinic in Miami was once again poked and prodded Anthony Bosch, who's just gives you the willies. You want to take a shower after
He looks like Ben Stiller when he plays one of those slimy characters.
Well, he's playing a character right now in Major League Baseball's goal of trying to get up to 20 guys, there he is, who in some way had a connection to this clinic. Names like Ryan Braun, Alex Rodriguez, and Nick. It seems to be that baseball, whether you like it or not, is not going to stop until they get these guys on this 50 to 100 game suspension.
We talked to Jason Stark, Major League Baseball insider at ESPN. He says this could go down as the biggest drug bust in the history of professional sports because unlike Greg Anderson, who sat and rotted in jail because he didn't want to rat out his friend Barry Bonds, Tony Bosch is going to be the Henry Hill of PhDs or PhDs.
Maybe he's a doctor.
He is a doctor. He's a doctor of roids. He is going to be, I don't know what word I'm looking for. I totally lost my train of thought.
He's going to be the guy who literally puts this over the top. Now, A-Rod is one of the bigger names here, and the Yankees are hoping, and I believe this, the Yankees are hoping he is pinched for this 100 games because they're looking for any way out of the contract in the rest of the years on the A-Rod deal. And that will play itself out. But this, if it already didn't tell you, proves to me that Alex Rodriguez, if you had a question about his Hall of Fame status, this will be the end of it. He'll never make the Hall of Fame. There's too much out there. How much of his career was clean, if at all? He lied to us many times overall. The guy's a fraud, and it was proven once again if this sticks.
He's a PhD when it comes to douchebaggery. That's why he is going to be done with the Yankees. Now, Ryan Braun is another guy that has a target on him. Ryan Braun beat the rap last year, stood up as spring training started, and basically said to everybody, you're all wrong, you all judged me. I will bet my life that the substances that were found in my urine test, I never used them. You know what? Major League Baseball wasn't happy with that little impromptu press conference.
Well, two things. First of all, there are no substances in my urine. I can prove that. Number two, he tried to make a mockery of what was a technicality that he got off on. Baseball knew it. He knew it. He should have kept his mouth closed, so they're going to make it a case to make sure Ryan Braun pays his penalty. All right, OTAs continue around the National Football League, and for the Atlanta Falcons, they're seeing some of their new toys, OCU Minora, Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson, I know it's only running around in shorts and a T-shirt, but watching a guy who I know is 30, I know the history of running backs at 30, Nick, he looks every bit as good as he probably did at 22 or 23, which makes Falcon fans very excited.
And again, it's football in shorts, but I go back to last year when I saw Michael Turner at minicamp, about 20 to 25 pounds overweight. You don't have to worry about that with Steven Jackson. And Steven Jackson is the same age as Michael Turner, and yes, he has a lot of carries, but he doesn't have to carry the load. He just has to be a guy that is that consistent threat running and catching the football.
But the yards, he'll go over 1,000 rushing. I don't think that's a big deal. I think he's going to get 15 total touchdowns between catching on the ground as well. Michael Turner had a total of 11 and left a lot in the 5 to 10 yard line last year. Steven Jackson will finish those off.
Well, he's the PhD of the Cellini family. Not that that's necessarily saying much. Vince Cellini from NBA TV and NBA.com covering the NBA Finals. He'll join us when we come back on The Late Shift. Doctor!
Now back to the Dantanna's Late Shift. Brought to you by Attorney Ray Giudice, featuring the Knights of Cellini Kick Line and the Chernoff Dancers.
And welcome back to the Late Shift as the NBA Finals continues, and now we head back to San Antonio. We get the star of stage and screen, the man whose name is in bright lights at NBA TV. He's Vince Cellini, also Nick's older brother, so it was a hard get for us. He joins us here on the Zero Res Hotline. Vince, it's a pleasure. How are you?
Matt, great to be with you. Nick, we have to stop playing the family card.
Well, we're glad he played it this last time. Vince, let's start with what everybody wants to talk about, and that's overanalyzing LeBron. Give me your thoughts on the first couple of games and what you've seen from LeBron James.
Well, as great as LeBron was with the triple-double in Game 1, and he had 18 rebounds, which is phenomenal, I still don't think we've seen LeBron's best game, to be honest with you. He started off very slow, 4 points through the half, only 8 points through 3 quarters, so you thought, wow, he's really there for the taking. But, look, the bottom line is this. He got everybody else rolling. And when you do that with Miami at home, you can't stop them. They finally were able to put forth, through LeBron and really all the other guys, the kind of Miami run that stuns you to the point where you look up and you're down 15. And in this case, they were down more. So a 33-5 run is not going to cut it in the regular season or postseason. But I think LeBron feels that his obligation, and whether or not people want him to do more or not scoring-wise, his obligation is to get everybody else involved. And he was able to do that after a slow start. And a lot of that had to do with being guarded by Kawhi Leonard, who did a great job on him, but he didn't stray from his game plan, and that was to get other guys involved. And the big other guy was Mario Chalmers. So we'll see if Chalmers can put up that kind of a consistent performance now as we head to Game 3.
Well, obviously, Vince, the other two members of the Big Three, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, not playing up to their capabilities, but confidence, I don't think, is going to be a factor with those two.
No, I don't think so either, because obviously, Wade is Wade, and he will never let you know that his confidence is waning at all, or that he's hurt, or that he doesn't feel like his game is on. So he'll do a Dwayne Wade-type performance. I'm not so much worried about him. Bosh is really the key in this whole thing. And I think what Miami is going to do in order to kind of take some of the pressure off Bosh, and they did it in Game 2, don't let him shoot threes. He didn't attempt threes. And B, don't make Tim Duncan his primary defensive responsibility. I would like to see Udonis Haslem guard Tim Duncan, take that responsibility off Bosh's plate so that Bosh can roam free and get some more rebounds and be an inside defender, not dealing with Tim Duncan. So I think that there was a good adjustment by Spoelstra in allowing them to do that. But, Nick, you're right. I mean, on the road here in the first of three, this is a pretty important game. What is it they say? Since the 2-3-2 format, the winner of Game 3, if it's tied at 1, is going on to win, 93% of the time? They win almost all the time. So this is an important game, not only for Miami to try to keep it going, but for the Spurs to say that was just an aberration. We're not that bad. They just got hot at one time, and they're not that much better than we are.
Vince, you brought up Eric Spoelstra's name, and I think he's sort of in this no-win situation. They win championships, people say, big deal, you rolled the ball out. They lose, he gets the blame. I don't know that he cares, but give me your observation of Spoelstra.
The more I'm around him, I don't think that's fair to Eric Spoelstra. Are there things about him that are, they say he's a Riley clone. He's learned at the foot of Riley. He's got his things he says. He talks about their identity all the time, and he has little catchphrases. But at the same time, it's a thankless job. I mean, who is going to be that guy to guard a team that's supposed to coach a team, rather, that's supposed to win it all? And frankly, I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought he did a great job adjusting defensively, in particular, in Game 2 with the pick and roll, totally disrupting Tony Parker and the pick and roll with Tim. And now we'll see if San Antonio can respond back. They were blitzing Tony Parker on that pick and roll. I'm not sure if that's entirely Eric Spoelstra's responsibility, but he signs off on it. And they were kind of laying back and making the Spurs make decisions that were bad decisions. So we'll see how Popovich now counters that, because they are going to pick and roll with Parker and Duncan. They will do it. They'll just probably do it a different place on the floor, maybe closer to the basket. But to answer your question, no, I don't think that's fair with Spoelstra. I'll say this. After all the games, Eric Spoelstra is the guy who politely answers all the media questions and isn't curt and kind of wise guy-ish with some of the media members once he answers those questions after games. So bottom line is, he's the coach. If they win titles, they're really good. You have to give them credit. You have to.
Well, the good news is for San Antonio, there's no place to go but up when you talk about Tony Parker and Tim Duncan's performance in Game 2.
Well, that's true, Nick. It's and you can throw Ginobili in there as well. I mean, to have those three guys go 10 of 33. But here's the bottom line. I really think that Duncan missed a lot of shots that he normally makes. I think Parker will be okay if Parker can get in the paint. If he gets in the paint, he makes shots. The thing that I'm most troubled with, or I would be if I were a San Antonio Spurs fan, is Manu Ginobili. Manu Ginobili has just not played well all year long. Is he now officially that guy who scores 11 points a game and, cannot take control as he did in the past? Now, the one thing about him is he doesn't have to score to impact the game. So that might be what we watch with Manu in this game. Is he going to get other people involved, make the plays necessary, and sort of facilitate and make things happen so other guys can score? But Ginobili just has to play better. The thing that was most troubling was him turning the basketball over. He just did not take care of the ball in Game 2, and that has to change for San Antonio.
Vince, lastly, let's talk about Popovich, who could have another championship, could be number 5. And I'll let you try to figure out all time. Where do you think he would rank if he gets that?
Well, by the number. I mean, most playoff wins with one team, I believe. He's got about 131 postseason wins. He's never lost a final series. That speaks volumes. I mean, that says it all right there. So I think you've got to put him in that pantheon of great NBA coaches all time. even if they lose this, they'd be 4-1. That's a pretty good run. And I think the respect that they have in terms of how they run the organization and the system are both going to be how we judge Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs.
Vince, always great information. Nick will bring payment your way this weekend. He says he'll deliver it in person, or personal that way.
Well, anything, pastry, something.
Yes, we'll bring you some croissants.
I'll pay you in eclairs.
Good job, Vince Cellini. Thank you, my friend, from NBA TV.
So long,
Check him out as the NBA Finals
Why am I
continues.
waving?
We'll take a break. Come back with us, Ted Jenkins, our money man from Oxygen of Financial. Talk all things business of sports and Father's Day ideas for gifts. Stay tuned.
Back here on the late shift, time for the Zero Res mess of the week. Cal Butler was a first-round draft choice for the Hawks. He's now working in the ticket department. He decided to put out an email saying, look, we could sign both of these guys, Chris Paul and Dwight Howard. You never know. Problem is, if you're any member of an NBA organization, you can't bring up any prospective free agents. They're technically still under contract till July the 1st.
He also linked up an article
Yeah.
telling people that the Hawks are interested in them. It's a tampering fine, and his job is probably on the line now.
I'm
That's
sure
a mess.
He lost his job as a player, and now he can't sell tickets any longer. The Hawks were fined for tampering. If you want to clean up your home, Cal Butler, it's too late for him. It's not too late for you. This is the late shift special offer courtesy of Zero Res. $139 gets you 3 rooms and a free hallway. Check him out at ZeroResAtlanta.com or call him at 770-242-1313. Zero Res, backwards, forwards. Doesn't matter how you spell it. It's the right way to clean.
Now you can get in touch with Zero Res that way. You can get in touch with us via the social media on Twitter, Dantanna's LS. Be our friend on Facebook. We need friends. You can be a part of the late shift.
He's a friend of the late shift. He's the money man. He is Ted Jenkins from Oxygen Financial. And Ted, Father's Day weekend is here, and a lot of people are wondering, what could I get Dad for his special day?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure you put your money to the best use. One of the things that I like is autographed sports memorabilia. A lot of players that are Hall of Famers, that you may think it will cost $500 or $1,000, but you can get something for $50 or $100 and actually get a pretty nice piece of merchandise for a cheap price. That's one thing to do. I also like afternoon golfing. If you're going to go to a nice golf course, and there are a lot of them here in Atlanta, you can get a cheaper price for doing a twilight and take Dad to that golf course he's never been to before. A few of them have gone close to bankrupt, I might add, so you can get a pretty cheap price. And sporting events are always good if you get a B game. You may not get the New York Yankees, but maybe you get the Pittsburgh Pirates or something like that. Take your dad to see a Braves game. That's a great father's gift.
On the memorabilia, I do it a little cheaper. I have him sign Hank Aaron's name on a ball and just tell him I paid for it. So
Problem
I
is,
save myself.
I sign it with one A all the time.
Screws
His
it up.
last name is.
Who's this Hank Aaron? Messes it up.
It's terrible.
All right, let's talk about one of the big issues that's been going around in college athletics for a long time, and that's all the revenue that the college athlete brings in, and the question of whether or not the scholarship is an equal trade-off. What's the answer at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, a kid gets a $120,000 scholarship roughly over 4 years. But if you look at it, University of Georgia brought in $92 million last year. And kid's jersey goes for $60 a shot. I think at some point when you're dealing with that upper level, that upper echelon of player, like an RG3 that brought in over $250 million of endowment money from winning the Heisman, they've got to be able to participate in some way, shape, or form.
Well, we take a look at the percentages of some of these kids, and the percentages of them turning pro, well, they're not very good, and that's why you have to give them probably something. It's not necessarily just about getting an education any longer.
Yeah, I mean, again, especially, you know, they talk about memorabilia and the stores selling jerseys for $60 or hats for $20, but I'm really talking about the endowment money. What's never talked about in that $92 million number, or $4+ billion when it comes to memorabilia overall in the NCAA, is really, you know, what kind of endowment money is coming in when your team wins. So I think in some way that upper level, the kid's got to be able to get something.
And I agree with you on it. I guess the only issue I have is how do you figure out what you pay? Do you pay football players more than basketball, more than swimming, more than golf? Do you try to divvy it up where the quarterback makes as much as the last guy on the roster? I just think you get into a very kind of tricky area of making sure everybody's happy. It doesn't become this even dirtier system of guys getting angry because they're not getting enough money once they get some money.
Yeah, well, like most partnerships, it ends up being who brings in the revenue. And ultimately, I've seen a lot of business partnerships. The people that bring in the revenue are the ones that get paid. So you look at contracts and sports memorabilia and things like that, you end up finding out who gets more money.
That's why he makes all the money in this partnership, and I get paid.
Actually, I'm the only one who works on the show.
I get paid in ice cream. Let's talk about
Rocky Road, though.
Talking about big splashes, moose tracks. If I do a really, really good job, big splashes. Some of these teams switching conferences. The initial payment's going to be there, but what about long-term profit?
Yeah, I think a lot of these schools have underestimated what the fan base will do. You know, when you get somebody like West Virginia that switched conferences. They didn't perform as well. But more importantly, our fans now going to go from Syracuse down to Florida State or vice versa when they join the ACC. So, yeah, they get some upfront money, but switching conferences isn't always good in the long term if your fan base can't come to as many games, doesn't get as involved. This, to me, happens a lot to people in the workplace. You know, they get a job, they want to make more money, they switch to another employer, and then all of a sudden, they're not making as much as they were at their former employer. So it's always been proven that switching from company to company, and I think this will be true in sports, conference to conference is not what makes the most money.
You said make money. Well, if you want to make money, this is the man. Ted Jenkins from Oxygen Financial. You see the ways to get in touch with him for some free money tips online, and also give him a call at 770-777-0427. Ted, have a great Father's Day weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My friend. All right, Ray Giudice is here with all the legal advice in the sports world. You're going to want to hear it next on The Late Show.
Where's that ice cream?
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Very good.
Now back to the Dantanna's Late Shift. Brought to you by attorney Ray Giudice with the Cellini All Cello Orchestra and the Chernoff Improvisational Mimes.
That's right, our legal counsel is here. He's Ray Giudice to cover all things legal in the sports world. We start with Chad Johnson, who had himself an interesting day in court. He was going to be able to walk free, basically, after headbutting his wife, which if something's going to get you thrown in jail, you think that would do it, until he gave his attorney one of those, an attaboy, for getting him off. And then the judge seemed like, hey, listen, you're not taking this seriously. You're going to the pokey for 30 days. You ever seen something like this?
Yeah, I have. And let's keep in mind, let's not look what was on TV. He was there because he had missed 3 consecutive meetings with his probation officer. So right away, the judge is saying, you, sir, are not taking me, the judge, robe, flags, guys with guns, seriously. Then you do a out of the courtroom street shtick in my courtroom when everybody's laughing, you're going to jail. Now I got to get your attention. I'll bet you go to your next probation meeting. That's what she said. Now, was there a little bit of preening maybe for her because there was a camera in the courtroom?
Yes.
It's possible.
She might get her own judge's show, you think?
Well, I don't get one. Why should she? Come on.
Well, you got this.
point.
What do you mean?
All
You're
right,
on
then.
here.
Yeah, well, I forgot all
It's kind of like being in jail. Speaking of which, Pac-Man Jones
probation.
arrested again. Altercation last Thursday in Cincinnati. Apparently, he runs into a woman earlier in the night. She wants to take a photo. They see each other again after he turns her down. Next thing you know, she throws some beer in his face, and he starts to go after her. Why doesn't he just walk away? He's not in the restaurant, obviously.
Not only that, there, as you can see, there's a fence, an iron fence between him and this lady. However, I got to give the guy a little bit of a break this time. You know, someone's coming at you, you don't know why, you don't know where, there's alcohol, she's got a bottle or a glass in her hand. He could say, look, instinctively, I threw my arms out to defend myself. I'm a football player, I'm an athlete, I have quick reactions. For all the things he's done wrong, this one he may have a little bit of an argument, a little bit of a defense.
All right, quickly, let me get your thoughts on Indians closer Chris Perez.
Yeah.
He has a package of marijuana sent to his home, and it's in his dog's name.
Right.
The wife's involved. It's just a mess.
Listen, Brody, the German Shepherd, he's got some problems.
You know,
Glaucoma.
yeah, free Brody. I mean, that's the. There you go. Listen, this is not a good situation. He should step up to the plate. It's a misdemeanor. It's not the end of the world. The question is there anything in his substance, in his blood system that may violate his agreement with the Indians and the Major League Players Association agreement, or his wife is going to take the rap? It's going to happen. Somebody will enter a plea.
All right, there's Ray Giudice. Get in touch with him. For Nick, I'm Matt. Thanks to Vince Cellini earlier. Have a great week. Thanks for joining us on The Late Show.